welcoming you once again to the Rescue Podcast, where we help real people cope with real life through candid conversation and helpful information. Now, life can be tough, and sometimes, to be honest, we need a little bit of help. For those of you listening who remember, we would have had the Rescue Me series and the Rescue Us devotional series, and those would have been done back in September last year, and then Rescue Us just happened in February, a 7-day marriage devotional. And coming out of those series, we would have decided it was a good idea to do a podcast series, a conversation series, where we would discuss some of the issues that people face. There are many people struggling, and after sharing the word and the spiritual message in the devotionals, we thought that it would be good to add some practical and helpful insight and advice. So over the course of 5 months, we are doing one podcast per month, and we're covering 3 major topics. The first topic for our first and second podcasts, which started in the month of April, and then in May we would have looked at Rescue My Broken Heart, Forgiveness in the Marriage in Crisis. And Ryan and Leona Clark came and they shared with us, and they shared very candidly about their marriage journey and how forgiveness has played a role. Then we looked at Help Me Keep My Parenting Mind, Raising the Special Needs Child with Jillian Cadogan. She talked about managing mental and emotional health while raising a child with special needs. And now we are looking at Help I'm Not Coping. We're going to be doing 2 episodes on this topic: Help I'm Not Coping, Combating Depression and Anxiety, and Help I'm Not Coping, Coping Strategies in Times of Crisis. Today's episode is a bonus episode, number 6 in what was supposed to have been a 5-part series. However, we had such a great conversation with Laurel Springer and Clair Browne, our guests, on the topic Help I'm Not Coping, Coping Strategies in Times of Crisis, that we thought it would be great to have a bonus episode so that you do not miss any of the content. If you missed episode 5, I encourage you to go back, take a listen. It is really well worth it. Here is the rest of that timely and informative conversation. St. Clair, the question I have for you is, having received, now that we've received all of this good advice in terms of how we express our feelings, how we do so in a safe manner and in a mature manner, is there anything that you would like to add in terms of the male perspective? Sometimes it seems as though men are less expressive, not necessarily less emotional, but less expressive of their emotions. So how do men do it? Talk to the men out there who may be listening.
I want to talk to the women, actually. I ruffle feathers too, so we got 2 feather rufflers.
That's it. That's perfect.
You go right ahead. Do your thing.
But no, the truth of the matter, I think that a lot, and I think it was mentioned, the generalizations. For me, I find that we take these generalizations and we just fit them onto things.
Correct.
And I found in my therapy that women say, women have this onus on emotions and men seem to be muted, and it's not true. I find inside of therapies, and women are shocked that they will say, my husband don't talk or whatever. I'm a talker, and sometimes we just cutting off each other, and she's there still like, what's happening here? And we talk about safe space. Yeah, there are many men that don't feel safe to communicate even with their spouse, and as you said, quite honestly, and the wife was saying, but I tell him to talk, or he could talk to me at any time. Yeah, but he's not giving the opportunity to. So telling a person, yes, you communicate with me, and yes, I want you to talk to me, but he says something, well, I don't agree, or that's stupid, or, he doesn't have the verbal, he can't be the verbal war.
Yes.
When it comes to communication, if we want to say that women, when it comes to using words, that they have the onus on that, I would give women that, definitely. But when it comes to overall communication, I don't agree. Because communication is, for depending on the variable, from the maximum, words are 30%. You know what I mean? There's non-verbal communication.
Right.
That takes up the other 70%.
Correct.
And when it comes to that nonverbal communication, I believe that men honestly, if you test it, you will see that men honestly have a higher percentage of communicating nonverbally. And it's all part of communication.
Yes.
So as you said rightfully, it is when we're using the medium of words, it's encoding that information, using the medium to give that information, another person decoding that, but then they're to send back to the person
Exactly.
that sent it to see if it matches what they sent.
Correct.
So I might say something and I might see my wife's face or whatever, emotion, and I would say, babes, what did you just hear me say?
Exactly.
So she would language to me what she heard, which may or may not fit to what I said
Right.
or I intend to send. And it would change the wording around so that she could then take what was in my mind correctly. Yeah. So when we talk about emotions and men not expressing that emotion, once again, look at a bunch of dudes at football. The most emotional people. You mean you got millions of people in the stand shouting, screaming, and crying.
Yes.
So don't tell me men are not
Correct.
emotional. You know what I
Correct.
mean? You go to a cricket match and who they're keeping the most noise
Yes.
and crying and
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
you got golf where a bunch of men trying to get this ball in the hole
Yes.
and people crying. It's the most boring sport in the world, but men are emotional about it.
Yeah.
So it is not that men are not emotional.
True.
Are not that have a challenge expressing that emotion. But they find that the spaces that they're given, we're not given these spaces or safe spaces, just like many women, not to feel safe to express. And just using some information that you all had shared earlier, because just using your example, Joel, if you don't mind me,
Go ahead.
where you're saying, I don't feel safe to speak. And the person saying, but I'm here. So it's not the guy that is not preventing or the person that is preventing you, but it's something in your head. So therefore, depending on how that person responds, you could go back in your head. And it has nothing realistically to do with what the person has done, but it's that interpretation. So we're having a society where men are feeling muted because there's that whole thing of being masculine, which has not been championed. We talk about Christian community. And I'm a big fan of the, to me, I use this word, craziness going on. Where we have males now with female archetypes and the females with male archetypes. So we encourage women to be strong, you know, dang, yeah, be strong. And then we tell men, oh, you're too strong. I mean, you're too aggressive, you gotta get softer. So even when we're preaching or in the pulpit, we now have to use pregnant pauses. That seems as a more palatable, you know, be pregnant pauses. You can't put full stops or exclamation marks. You're too aggressive, you're too assertive. I don't like that abrasiveness. So men have been taught now not to be abrasive. Yet we're supposed to protect. So men are caught in this weird space where how am I supposed to be a protector and not an aggressor? But women are allowed to be the aggressors, but want to be a protector. And for men overall, you cannot win a battle. They must tell women, honestly, because we allow society and all those to kind of evolve something that is a little weird, where there is the thing of being the victim and the aggressor. And you cannot win if a person is both the victim and the aggressor. So men are caught in a space now where the women are dating and recognize, okay, the man says, okay, babes, do you want something to eat? She says, yeah. He says, where do you want to go? She says, I don't know, you choose. He says, I don't know, where do you want to go? And there's this common thing of, where do you want to go? I don't know, where do you want to go? Because the man is scared. Men are literally scared of making a decision right now because they don't want to come over as aggressive or assertive.
And that actually connects to something that I want to ask in terms of the gentleman and crisis management. Because my understanding of males is that men like to, I know I'm not supposed to use the generalizations,
Go ahead.
but the male type likes to find a solution. If a crisis occurs, a man may seek a solution as opposed to going straight to the point of seeking to process that crisis. They may be going to find a way, how do we fix this? How do I, like you say, be the protector or
Not
the person that's taking care or guiding? Do you think that men will struggle with?
The biggest challenge we have with those generalizations is like saying, you know, all women love children.
Okay.
You know?
Because I'm wondering if men would at any point, when you're presented with a crisis, will you be in a place of perhaps acting or seeking to act to solve the situation as opposed to processing what has happened and
Once
finding
again,
a way
it depends on
to
the personality.
deal with that from an emotional
Yeah,
standpoint.
it is, but it all depends. We're talking about healthy, mature people.
Right.
In all spectrums. So there's some women, and this causes a lot of issues, and this is why marriages are in crisis. So we talk about crisis, we talk about family being in crisis, society being in crisis, marriage being in crisis, and individuals being in crisis. And we talk about something is impacting the society. So
Yes.
it is a crisis.
Yes.
It's a very invisible undercurrent
Yes.
crisis.
Correct.
Because there's some men, depending on the personality, we don't personalities now, because there's some women that are problem solvers.
Yes.
We don't personalities here. This
Yes,
is nothing to do with
that's
gender.
a really good
There's
point.
some people that you say A, they can say B.
Correct.
So, my co-moderator here, I could tell by her personality. I would say dog. She could talk for half an hour about dog.
Yeah.
No preparation at all. Yeah. So what does that mean? Does it mean that what she's masking? I'm saying to you, okay, I'm looking at Joel, I say, dog. It is not. She doesn't know about dog, but give me a little bit of time to plan to
What
talk
I'm
about the
gonna
dog.
tell you, yeah.
In a sense, so
You got
tell
me,
her
you
about
got
dog.
me, you got me.
So it is going like, okay,
Right.
is this a male thing or a female thing?
Good
No, it's not.
point.
It's a
Yes,
personality thing.
yes,
Yeah.
excellent.
So you have a man that now you're saying, oh, you're supposed to be in charge, you're supposed to know, and the man is blank. It's not because he's not a man, it's because of his personality.
Yes.
There's a difference.
Talk the taste,
And
brother.
so I'm just saying to us that we could put a man in a very weird space, because although he is the leader, and we talk that is more spiritual, and because we mix up spiritual and a whole set of things, not having time for that. But there are many times that headship is not what we understand here. So the man is where the man, he's not necessarily the creative person. He's not the person that can, the ideas person. He may be more the servant personality.
Yes.
So he doesn't mind that his wife come up with an idea. Tell me what you want from a shop. And she's like, but you should know, and if you know me, and if we're in love, and I need to have this romanticism, which is another set of garbage.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, but it's stupid.
yeah.
But, oh, you should know what I'm thinking. No, communicate.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Because we love movies and videos to kind of dictate their person have a writer, they're producing, and most of those actors get a divorce, okay? So the part of men being, having the ability to be emotional, communicate those emotions, there's some men that are very good with their words. There's some men that are very good at expressing that. There's some men that are very that are very intuitive, right? But it doesn't mean that all men are this or all. And there's some women now that you expect to be all intuitive, and they're not.
Yes,
So then it depends on the
exactly.
person. It depends
The
on the man and their
personality.
personality
Yes.
that determines to some extent
Yes, so
their
having a
ability to handle
crisis
that
situation,
crisis.
now, let me say something that is outside the realm of emotions. And you find that your wife is normally that person that, we cool. You understand? Babes, what do you think we should do? You know what I mean? And he bounced on the roll. But to take your model in your marriage and your model and then try to fit it onto my model,
right.
it will not work. And I've had many sessions where the female, she's the creative, she's excited, she's the person that she can think about 100 things a second. And the guy is ridiculously internal. Very, very internal, deep internal. So she's there at home waiting for him to have a conversation, and he has nothing. Because they told her that she's supposed to be submissive to him. And I said, but babe, I said, girlfriend, he loves you the way he might. He said, yeah, I love you because you're crazy, right? He loves that big personality that she has. But she was trying to make him into this leader, but he's supposed to be the leader. He's the leader, doesn't mean he has to know all the things.
Yes.
And when you're a leader of a company, and anybody owns a company, they hire people that know stuff that they don't know. That is why they hire them.
Yes.
It doesn't mean they have to know all the things. So that was saying in relationships where it comes to men are very good at expressing their emotions if they're given the space. And once again, that there are different ways of communicating. It's not just verbally, it's also non-verbal communication.
Those are really, really good
Yes,
points.
man, for real.
Really good points. And our next question, I may combine the next two questions, really. We talked a bit earlier about the fact that in our church cultures, sometimes in our community culture, we are often taught to kind of keep things together. You refer to the fact that sometimes somebody may come and say, this is how I feel, and we tell them, I'll pray for you, or pray a little harder, or things along that line. And often
Effectual prayers of the righteous avail much.
Yes.
Keep praying and believing, brother.
And sometimes we're taught, you don't let anyone know your business or what you're going through. And sometimes we put a bit of a plaster over people's situations and over what they're doing. And as a result, there are some who struggle a bit with effectively managing themselves, their emotions during crisis times, and as a result will experience the same guilt that we referred to earlier, the shame that we referred to, because they're unable to maintain this mask or this appearance of having it all together and being all, everything is lined up and all the ducks are in a row for them emotionally. That is not how they feel, and they're having a challenge with maintaining what they're being told by society or by their church or the people around them that they should maintain in terms of an appearance.
Yes.
So for those who may be in that position, who may be experiencing that sense of shame, that sense of, I am not managing and I feel guilty and I feel bad about it, what can you offer to them? What advice can you give them?
I think that, I know that this might not be as clear cut for everyone. So I also want to honor the fact that everyone might not have the personality or the circle around them that might be able to support what I am saying next, but I will still provide a solution. And my first point would be, you have to be able to identify your sources or your support system. And that might be different for everyone. And I'm not in any way saying, though, that you have to rely on this person, because there's also danger in that. Well, yes, we have friends, whether it be our partner or parents, a friend, whoever the case is, you still have to do the work to a point that if, for example, your person is not there, that you don't have a full meltdown. So aside from building yourself up and doing the work to kind of give yourself the tools in the toolbox that we talked about earlier, and we can talk about how you can develop those tools. One is making sure that you can identify in your circle who are the persons that you can go to. Because, for example, a person who, let's use a person who goes to church, for example, if it is an issue more spiritually related, they may feel more comfortable to, call a person in their youth group or ministry group or the pastor or whoever it is to help them navigate. Maybe in that case, they might require, some prayer. Maybe in that case, they just need a listening ear, whatever it is. But you need to be able to identify the appropriate persons for the situation. So just for example, if I have issues with my finances, I'm not going to call my architect. I'm going to call my accountant. Why? Because he understands numbers. That is his training. That is his background. So similarly, don't go to somebody who has no reference point for what you are going through and expect to get the type of response that you're looking for. So you need to know who are the persons that you can go to, that you can get that support that you need in the moment. Identify those persons and know that you can reach out to them as needed. And obviously that comes over time and building that relationship. If all else fails, and not only when all else fails, on top of that, there's always the professional route. We mentioned it earlier where we said that you don't have to wait necessarily until that there's a crisis for you to reach out for a professional, right? So again, see it as an opportunity to build up your skill set, improve on your emotional maturity, your EQ. So whether it be that, you sign up for a course, you do webinars, there's so much information that is available online. There might be support groups. You have to be able to identify what your need is in terms of how you manage situations and your coping mechanisms. And if you realize that you want them to be better, you have to be prepared to put the work in, and you don't have to do it alone. So whether it is that you reach out to your immediate circle or identify persons who might be more appropriate to assist, you can always speak to a professional, because that's what they're trained to do. The advantage of going to a professional is that this is a third party who is objective, who will not know who your mother is, and you grew up in the Sunday school, and I know you from the time that you was a little boy and da-da-da-da. You go to a person who can offer you a different perspective, and help you to develop solutions to address the issue that you may, so that when the time of a crisis comes, you can say, I remember this, I remember that, I remember this, and you can kind of pull from it. But just as we like to use the cliche phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup, that means that you need to be able to have something within you so that when it is required, you can output it. So we need to take the time and see ourselves as our very best investment and do everything that is within our power to educate, enlighten, and bring us to a place where we can feel a little bit more confident as we navigate, and we don't have to do it alone.
So help us now, for those of us who may be saying, okay, I hear you, Laurel. I hear you. There's a need to work through some of my emotional maturity. There's a need to do that, maybe in the context of with a professional therapist or a counselor, in order to make sure that I can manage, that I can maintain, and I can cope in a crisis when I'm presented with a crisis. What if I don't have the money? What if finances do not allow? What if my resources don't allow? What if I don't have much of a support system? For those persons who may be in that position, what is their recourse? Are there any alternatives? What would you suggest?
But I don't know if Sinclair wants to jump in here, and then I can add some as well.
The truth matter that God has designed all of us to be counselors, long and short of it. A hairdresser, that's why if you go to hairdresser, as soon as you touch your hair, people start to talk their business. Barber, mechanic. There's something about sharing. And you said something earlier, Joel, where if a family structure is that one that says, what happens here, let it stay here. Let us be fraudulent. Let's do a facade. And we learn not to communicate. That person is hindered because they learn not to trust people.
Yes.
So ill is happening at home, but then I can't speak about it. So I learn not to speak.
Yes, you're taught.
Right? Not to speak.
Don't tell nobody your business.
Exactly.
So they took their insecurities and placed it on you as a rule. And because we think our parents mean well, and they do, they can damage us.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Which is, there is also somebody that's out in the road disclosing business of what's happening on the inside.
Right.
Both are dangerous.
Correct.
Right? So that person is on the outside, getting on and letting you know what's happening in the house.
Right.
And also where you have in the house, we're saying, don't let anything go out. Yeah. And the truth matter that both are dangerous. So in both cases, some people share too much and some people not share at all. But there are spaces, there's free counseling areas across Barbados. Pastoral situations are there.
Yes.
There are several persons out there. And it's for those persons, as they recognize, I don't have any external factors, then you recognize, okay, I obviously have a situation here I need to start to look at, period. So to reach out to those persons to find someone, and yes, it's difficult if you don't have those things, and I've learned not to trust people, right? So it's going to be difficult, yes, but once again, as I said, the church is there. There are free counseling areas across Barbados, right? Depending on your situation, be it pregnancy, be it abortion, be it, there are several
suicide, someone could
there's so many places, but it takes time. You have to go and look for it.
Yes.
You have to go and look for it. So there are too many people doing ministries and non-profit organizations to assist persons.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's for us now to get up and to search. The good thing we have search engines now, which is different to the yellow pages. Now you just go and search or I just toss on social media. Do you know a good counselor that is free?
Yeah.
Well, somebody's going to answer you. So my thing is to get out there and reach and to find those resources.
Yeah, and to jump on that, I fully agree with it. And maybe what we can do, because again, one of the things that I lead with is being solution oriented and solution focused. And I will use this as an opportunity to encourage those who are listening to this, who might be in churches, groups, communities, or whatever, to have a list of resources available so that in the event that a person might be going through something, that they can easily access it. So let's just use the church as an example. And I do a lot of training with churches and groups and at different levels. And one of the things that a lot of leaders within the church say is, especially, for example, with the topic of mental health, well, this isn't anything that we are trained about. We do theology and we know about the Bible, but we don't know how to deal with these type of mental health related issues, and that's okay. But what it is that you need to know what resources are available so that in the event that something happens, you don't feel like a fish out of water and there's nothing that you can do because you don't feel equipped to do it. That's where it comes back again about being honest with yourself and being able to identify, this is not my strong point. But I do know that there might be persons in my congregation that might be going through different issues at different points in time. Here is a list of resources that can support persons who might be going through, having suicidal ideation, who might be a parent who might be stressing out, marriage that may require marriage support, whatever. Maybe this is an opportunity for pastors and ministers and church leaders, for example, to be able to take that time to do the research, put that information together and make it accessible to their members so that in the event that something happens that they might not be equipped to handle. Or secondly, the reality is that they are not available on the moment, because gone are the days where pastors are at home and the only thing that they do is being a pastor. So imagine that you have a pastor who is working a full-time job. They don't have access to their phone, for example, and you're going through a crisis and you call the pastor. You can't get upset that the pastor ain't answering the phone in the moment.
Me, they shouldn't.
Exactly.
I was about to say the same thing.
Exactly, right? So, but again, we know that there's these expectations that we have that, as the pastor this, whatever. That's not realistic. So if that is the case, understanding that, again, things can happen that you might not necessarily be prepared for, have a list of resources. I also encourage churches to have a protocol of responding to crisis. If there are things that happen within the church that you know that you are not prepared to handle, whether it be of a psychological nature or whatever the case is, you should be able to say, this is a person that in the event that this happens, you can contact this person, or have a roster of people. We got to be a little bit more proactive. There's too much information, as St. Clair said, that is out there that if we can't handle something or if we don't know on our own, that we should not be able to do some research and put together a little fact sheet or something, make it available to your members, as well as say, yes, we are here, there's the structures in place or whatever, but we should always have a protocol in place that people know where to go if they need support.
Yes. Those are tremendous, those alternatives that will help us when we don't know where to go, may not be able to find the help, or may not be able to afford the help at the time. There are resources out there. There are resources if we do a work and search for them.
Correct.
All right. So my final question that I want to ask and to pose to you, I know we did mention faith before. We did talk about the fact that often people may sometimes confront your crisis situation with telling you that you need to pray more, or they may look to the spiritual solution first, which is important, of course. But then the practical side of it sometimes gets a bit neglected. Recently, I heard a quote. I believe Dr. Anita Phillips was the author of this quote, and she said, prayer is a strategy. Prayer is a weapon, Counseling is a strategy. That is it. Prayer is a weapon. Counseling is a strategy. Prayer is a weapon because we have an enemy that we are fighting, who sometimes is the source of some of these situations that we're going through. But counseling is a strategy in our times of war that will help us to manage and effectively deal with the situations that we are facing. So the question I have to you both is, how does our faith help us to cope when we're going through a time of crisis? How does our faith connect? How does it help us to cope?
With understanding faith and understanding what is there, For me personally, and we talk about 7 pillars of help, because looking at the psychology of a person, the physical and the spiritual, to me, there's one thing. It's not a separate human being. We can isolate it, but it's still one human being. And the spirit prayer is the most important thing, period. Because when we understand that everything that is manifested here has to first be established spiritually. There's nothing that can happen here unless it happens spiritually. And I think we talk about the body of Christ now. We've a lot of people say we talk about things about being super spiritual. And I tell people I'd rather be super spiritual than super carnal if I have an option, as a believer. But yes, there are practical things to put in place. But you must understand that when we have come to a place where if God is the author and the finisher, so we're saying prayer, but we're not giving a person a solution, then something is still wrong there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because if you're coming to me as a leader, if I position myself as a leader, if I'm saying to you, if I choose to be in that position, to be as a leader, and a person that comes to me because I've carried that headship, they expect me to know something more than them.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I go to my mechanic and he I say, okay, you listening? He said, what sound like to you? Like, what is he saying to me coming to you? If I go to the dentist and they say, okay, so when a person does come to us, they're looking for solutions.
Correct.
So, even if yes, prayer, but tell me something else. I'm struggling with my sexuality. I'm struggling with my marriage. I'm struggling with loving my husband. I'm struggling with loving my wife. I'm going through financial. So yes, there's the prayer, and we talk about resources also. So yes, there's the prayer, and I love what you said, prayer is a weapon, counsel is a strategy. And the Bible says, the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom.
Exactly.
So people are seeking wisdom.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And Jesus, the Bible says, Jesus learned obedience through his suffering. Much people not going to preach on that, but that's in the Bible. You know what I mean? So there has to be that rod and that staff that brings us to a place of wisdom. So prayer is vital, and for persons to understand the spiritual realm is real.
Yes.
It's more real than this realm. So if we're going to be in a position of leadership, we have to be understanding spirit, not just religion. You know what I mean? So a person coming to us, so my thing is ridiculously important. Ridiculous. It's very centered to my counseling process. So everything I say is from the Bible, but I don't have to say I do like Jesus. Jesus said many things are from the Bible, but he didn't say this from Isaiah 11:20.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? When he battled the devil, everything was for Deuteronomy. But if you don't know that, you wouldn't know it's from Deuteronomy. People think that you have to, title it. I mean, it goes for referencing, but I don't have to reference everything I'm saying to a person.
Right.
Because once again, a person may have a negative thing where Christianity or religion is concerned.
But you're still able to integrate your faith.
Of course,
your
very
counseling
much.
practice.
Every client that I have know that I'm a Christian minister, but they feel safe to expose their dirt because it's a safe space. There's never me giving my advice and my opinion. If you ask my opinion, I would give it to you. But I give you advice. I take my model from Jesus, really. So Jesus would help persons where they want to get to. Some were healed, but some were not made whole. So there's a difference. You know what I mean? Do you want healing or you want made whole? Only be made whole in Jesus. If you want help with the situation, I'm here to do that too. But the whole thing of understanding prayer is vital. Understanding the spiritual realm is very, very solid. If you begin to understand that, more often than not, you will find solutions or you'll be able to help people through their crisis.
Yes.
Because mainly we try to solve things here, but as you rightfully said, it's not created here.
Correct.
Yes.
So
then it takes a dual combination, a combination of the two things.
Course.
Yes.
But my thing is, if there's a higher percentage, 80% spiritual. I mean, when it goes there, we will go there. It doesn't have to mean somebody, but any client of mine knows, okay, I don't have to bombard you and say the Bible and Ezekiel and none of that. I allow God to do his thing. And people say, okay, how you know that? I say, check in with Jesus. Jesus revealed. You're not being honest. You know what I mean? You're not being honest. Let me be transparent here. Right? And it's okay, you did this and that. That's the Holy Spirit. I ain't going to shake and buck to let you know the Holy Spirit tell me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I'm just saying that to me, honestly, we can negate the Holy Spirit. We can negate the Word of God. We can negate prayer, and that it is vital. But can I function without having to come over as weird? Yes. You know what I mean? I don't have to start a session, let's start a worship with whole hands. No, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I don't have to start with a word of prayer because I'm always in prayer.
Yes.
Right? So I'm just saying for us that as spiritual leaders, and just to kind of cement it, we need some training, and if we don't have it, find somebody that does it. Understanding emotions.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every single person in the Bible, emotional. When I read the Bible, all I see is emotions. That's all I see, right? So when I hear people say, "Oh, don't," emotions are nothing. Have faith. You cannot have faith without emotions.
Correct.
You cannot. Right?
That's how we were created.
We're created.
Very true.
Yeah.
And even Jesus, when he was in his crisis situation,
Exactly.
He had emotions.
he went to people and I see he's Jesus. There's
Yes.
Jesus. You
Yes.
understand?
Yeah. Yes.
If you don't, Yeshua, if you want to go there, you know what I
Yes.
mean. But he went to his disciples like, pray for me.
Yeah.
And he come back like, hey, tell him to pray for me. Like, what are you doing?
Yes, yeah.
And he come back like
Really?
you know what I mean? 3 times he did it.
Yeah.
That he was ready, he's ready. And then the Bible even show you that an angel came and comforted him.
Yeah.
You understand? He even needed someone. I need somebody to
Correct.
comfort me in
Correct.
the middle of my crisis.
Correct.
He came because like, yeah, daddy, like, there ain't no other way we could do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people say, oh, don't question God. I'm like, this is a relationship with God.
Right.
Yes.
When they're going through crazy, you
Yes.
think God got there offended, or why you question me? Here's some thunder. That is stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people say, oh, don't question God. When I'm going through my crisis, I am having this relationship with my father.
Correct.
And I'm like, Daddy, why?
Yes.
Why my child died? Daddy don't understand. Daddy,
That's
why,
it.
Yeah.
why my husband leave? Why this? And
Yes.
we prevent people from having that
Correct.
emotional
Correct.
relationship
Correct.
with God.
Correct.
Yes. Being able to express.
And you want to know
emotions
why?
in the
Because
context
I
of
don't have
prayer.
an emotional relationship with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because
Yeah,
most
correct.
leaders, unfortunately, do counsel pastors said, you want to know why? Because pastoral ministry is academic. You pass test. I'm not taking away anything, but I'm saying to you, you're taught to lead people and you're taught nothing about people. I've done theology, like 3 years. You learn, exegesis and all these different things.
Yes.
And then you're tossed, okay, here's to lead people. And you know nothing about
About
Yes.
yes.
emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is my thing is that, yes, there's emotional understanding, but the spiritual realm is very, very important.
Yes. Man.
Yes. Thank you so much.
That is some good food there for thought. And just to add to that, because that was well said, I look at it again with a very well-known verse that, again, we throw around very loosely, but there's truth to it, and it actually dovetails with the statement that you shared, prayer is a weapon, counseling is a strategy. Faith without works is dead. So again, we can talk about faith, but there needs to be an action piece to it. So it's one thing to say, I believe, but what are the steps that we're going to
taking,
take, right?
yes,
That's the next step.
yes.
And I think that what we need to do is to understand the role of the Holy Spirit in revealing to us the truth. And we need to be in tune with what it is that he is saying. We talk about a relationship. And if you have a relationship with God, trust that he will speak to you. He will guide you. He will comfort you. He will be whatever it is that you need. We love to talk about the different names of Jesus. He's
Yes,
Jehovah
yes,
Rapha, our
yes.
healer, Jehovah El Shaddai, Jehovah Rapha, all of these things. But know that whatever it is that we need in the situation, the word has already set the precedent to let us know that there is something that will come out of whatever the situation is, and we can go through it. Doesn't mean that we have to go through it alone. Again, if we look at Jesus and how he lived his life and who he surrounded himself with, he was not a man that lived in isolation. There were times when he isolated himself, though, but he still had his people around him that were his source of support, along with his relationship with his father. So I think that what we need to do is to understand that there is the horizontal relationship that we need to build to grow our faith, and there is the vertical one as well. So with it comes to our people. So horizontal meaning our friends and those around us, the people in our church or whatever, but then there's the vertical between us and God. If we take the time to develop those sets of relationships, that is when faith comes alive, because faith shouldn't just be a word, or faith isn't just going to church every Sunday. That's religion.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be able to distinguish what is religious and tradition and actions that we do because everybody has always done it, versus having that intimate relationship with God, where, as St. Clair said, you can say, God, really? You know, and be honest. But again, as Jesus demonstrated, after he expressed his emotions, what did he come back down to? Not my will,
But
thy
yours
will
be done. Yes,
so
yes.
that's where, to me, the faith is exemplified, where you can express yourself, you know that you're having a rough time, but faith is what keeps me knowing that even though I am going through this right now, that I am going to go through, because God is not going to put me in a situation that he does not equip me to handle.
Yes.
So that is faith being demonstrated, not just in words. So faith is central. Faith is important. Faith might look differently for everyone. Again, we go back to the individual aspect of it. We are all at different faith levels, and we might require different things to give us that. But as we grow in our faith and as we grow in our maturity, then it can get to a point where we can face a crisis and we can stand boldly and say, this is a rough one, man. I ain't gonna lie, this is a real rough one. But I've seen him do it before, and I know that he'll do it again. So faith without works is dead. Let us join our relationship with utilizing the knowledge that God has put on this earth. He has given doctors, he's given psychologists, he's given social workers, he's given life coaches, he's given wellness specialists. All of us have been given our gift. So while I am not a person that will get up on the platform and preach per se, I see me as my skill set being able to still fulfill what God has put me on this earth to do, and to increase people's faith through the work that I do. So tap into those resources if you need to, and marry your relationship with God, with others, with action. And that will help you to manage crisis a little bit better.
That's great, Laurel. That is so good. And one thing that I wanted to connect to there when you were speaking about faith and about how God helps us to manage through a crisis, one thing that I have found from my personal experiences is that he also shows us and teaches us what we can learn from a situation. So we go through our crisis situations, but one of the coping strategies that I have developed over time through faith in God, through connection with him, is that I seek to understand or seek to have insight into what God may be seeking to do at that time in my life. What is it that he's seeking to establish? What pattern of behavior is he seeking to change? Maybe I have a wrong mindset or a wrong way of thinking, and God is turning it around so that I can move in a better way in the future, or in a different direction in the future. So very often we have to go through that process with God where he helps us to reframe and to get a new and a fresh perspective on what it is that we have been through. I've talked about my son's diagnosis with autism. And for me, that was a crisis, and a difficult crisis to confront. But I have processed that to the point that I've come to understand, well, maybe this came to teach me some patience. Maybe this came to teach me some determination. Maybe this came to teach me not to give up and not to quit. You know, so there are different things that we learn, and it's very important when we are seeking to cope to connect with God and to understand, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me? Tell me what you're trying to teach me so that I can go forward from here. So this has been a really good conversation, guys. I am so happy to have had you in here with me today, Laurel Springer and Clair Browne, who were here to share with us on this topic, coping strategies in times of crisis. So I just want to recap quickly just some of the things that we said. We talked about the fact that when we need to cope, we need to focus on what is important in a crisis. We need to do what works for us. Coping strategies for one person may be different from another. We need to evaluate our wants, our needs. We need to evaluate our mindset. Crisis shows the true us. Sometimes we need to reframe to get an opportunity to learn from the crisis. Or we need to assess our emotions. One of the emotions we may experience is fear. We may question our ability to make it through. However, we need to learn ourselves. We need to identify those emotions. We need to be able to assess what feelings we're having. And we can use coaching and counseling to help us to do that. We can establish safe spaces in which to create a room to speak and to say what is going on with us. And don't forget, we can write down, we can process, we can choose a good time to speak about these things. Use I statements is something Laurel said. Instead of we statements or you statements, use I statements to express what you're going through. And then finally, we talked just a bit about faith and the fact that faith connects with what we are going through here on earth, and that we need to be able to connect the two in order to process and to do everything that we have to do and to cope in our times of crisis. So before we go, I just want to remind you who are listening that the devotional series with Pastor Ricardo Roberts, my handsome hubby, and myself, Rescue Us, the Lifeline of Forgiveness, is available. It's a 7-day marriage devotional series and a free PDF workbook. You can go to www.therescuelifeline.com. If you missed it, we would have launched that back in February, from February 14th to February 20th. And if you missed it, we have it available on our website. Rescue Me, the Lifeline of Forgiveness, that devotional series is also available on our website. And there will be a link in the description to this podcast so that you can check it out. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for listening in and spending some time with us here on the Rescue Podcast, where we help real people cope with real life through candid conversation and helpful information. Bye, and see you next time.